Need a ride?
As far as I can.
Hop in.
Hello, Biff. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for watching Vicious Fun. I hope you had a great time watching it. My name's Benner from Black Fawn Films, and I am here joined with all of you at home, hopefully having just experienced an awesome film, horror comedy that we're really, really stoked to bring to you guys, and thank you so much for checking out. But I'm joined right now with director Cody Callahan, which is over here, and also producer Chad Archibald, who is down here. Thanks again for joining us, guys, and thanks for sending the film to Biff. I'm sure everyone loved it. How are you guys feeling about everything?
Good. Excited. Wish we were there. Wish we were all there.
What a thrill ride.
So let's just jump in. We got some questions that we'd like to get to as well, just for the audience, just to kind of let them know sort of how the film came to be.
This is what you said to me. A group of serial killers attending a 12-step meeting tried to kill me and my accomplice before disappearing, leaving us with 3 dead bodies?
2 dead bodies.
It's one word, right? Bullshit.
What was it like making this film, Cody? Like, I know you kind of you made Oak Room just before this, which was a completely different sort of project to kind of be involved in, and then you jumped into Vicious Fun. How was the process of making this film, and what did you take away from it?
It was an amazing experience. I mean, obviously, I think I went into this movie maybe a little underprepared than most films, because we were just finishing post on the Oak Room, and we were still doing all the sound design and stuff and I think we had like a couple days before we had to be on set for the first day of shooting. So there was a lot of sort of scrambling in between, but we had a stellar crew and an amazing cast, so that definitely helped. But yeah, it was exciting because we went from making the Oak Room, which was a thriller, into like a horror comedy, which we hadn't done before. So it was an amazing experience, and obviously being able to make sort of a love letter to horror movies was awesome.
Bullshit.
Sorry to interrupt your meeting.
Thanks so much for coming out. How do you maintain your lifestyle and keep your urges under control?
I murdered the same victim repeatedly.
Just give me a pass.
Have you ever bitten into a kidney?
What is this, some kind of support group for serial killers?
Why are you here? It's complicated.
So one of the things that's obviously central to the movie is the idea that there is a self-help group for serial killers, that it's sort of like an Alcoholics Anonymous group for psychos. Where did that idea kind of come from? So, from like, where did it start, and how did that influence the rest of the film as you were coming up with the ideas and the plot?
So the whole thing sort of came to fruition through the title. I had written down Vicious Fun because I thought that would be a great title for a movie, and I just started putting random ideas for what it could be and to this page. And I think I went back and forth with Chad a bunch of times, and we sort of kicked it around for a while. And at some point we knew we wanted to make a story that we could involve all of these killers from movies that we sort of grew up on. And so we were trying to figure out a way to get them all in the same room. And I can't remember where that sort of tagline came from, but it seemed like the best way to stick all of these unlikely people in the same place.
And it kind of felt like it kind of felt fun, this idea that we could see like the other side of serial killers, right? You only ever see them in movies as like these villains or like these, hulking menaces that kind of like come out of the woods or whatever and kill people. And it's like, you never really hear their side of the stories, It's like, if they've got their own trauma too, like most horror villains, it's like they come from trauma or they come from something bad or whatever, right? So this is their little support group that we can kind of get to know these people.
So you're talking about like serial killers have a heart as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Sort of.
another side to every story.
So
Not saying that
everyone's got
exactly,
struggles,
but
right?
of course, serial
a
killers
hard
are
job,
bad.
man. It's a
Everyone,
hard job.
everyone at home watching at Biff, serial killers are bad. But let's talk about that for a second, because that's a good segue. Because I know obviously there's a lot of different types of serial killers in this movie. They're obviously influenced by a lot of classic characters that have been in horror films over the years and over the decades. How did you come up with the different types? Like, how did you come up with the different categories? I think obviously like Mike is a shout out to Jason, obviously from Friday the 13th. But how did you kind of figure out, okay, we need 5, 6 serial killers? So how are we gonna categorize them so they don't overlap? Like, what went into that process? Do you guys have lists, or do you guys just sit around and talk about it?
Yeah, so there was the original list was very on the nose, sort of referencing anything from Jason to Freddy, and we went, and I think the list ended up being, I think there was 12 killers in the support group to begin with, in the treatment and the idea, and then we started combining some and narrowing it down, and then when we started working with James Villeneuve and Chris Smets, we sort of they sort of evolved, and some of them got combined and stuff, and then we sort of ended on our our favorite 8, I think, and that's sort of how they came about. It was a huge list into a shorter list.
Yeah. And we definitely wanted to make sure that they were like homages to different characters for sure, but they were also still their own characters, you know? Like they weren't like, you know, like Fritz the clown wasn't just a guy sitting in a clown thing, you know? He has more to him, you know? He has his altered personality. He has, you know, the way he does his clown is different than, you know, your standard, you know, face makeup and, you know, big froey wig or whatever, right? So it's like we wanted to make sure even like the cannibal is kind of like Hannibal, but he's, you know, he's got his kind of, you know, his voice that speaks to him in his head, and like we wanted to make sure that they all like you could kind of pick them out as classic horror movie villains, but they also still had their very, you know, distinct personalities that kind of made them, you know, different.
I thought you had our little group sessions on lockdown. Are you Skinner, a slicer dicer, or corpse humper?
How did you be?
So one of the things that I've heard, and we have a lot of feedback from audience members, and I'm sure people at home at Biff are maybe wondering this too, is that the serial killers are so interesting as well, especially Ari Millen as Bob, Julian Richings as Fritz the clown. People have asked, hey, like these serial killers could have their own movies, and have you given that any thought? And if you had to make a movie about one of them, or the backstory of one of them, or past adventures, or however you want to put it, is there a particular particular killer that you'd want to do that for?
Well, it's funny because it's like we wanted to make sure that we made each character rich enough that they felt like they should have their own movie, so that the support group would feel not just sort of like a bunch of these killers all saying the sort of the same thing. We wanted to make sure that they were rich enough that each deserved that. So it's good that that's the buzz we're getting. I mean, for me personally, just because we went down the road of Carrie's backstory, we've got like 3 movies planned out of where she started and how she became a serial killer of serial killers. So I don't know. I feel like seeing her backstory and seeing a movie about her would be fascinating. And Amber's just incredible, so it'd be awesome to work with her again. But yeah, that would be cool. But we have tossed around the idea of definitely of doing a sequel, which I think you'd get to see more about some of the serial killers.
Quarter!
It got really messy. I like it messy sometimes.
I think if you know, if I can just pitch in here too, is that, you know, if you ever made a movie about Bob, would it include more dancing from Ari Millen? Because I think that's one of the highlights of the movie, is this dance sequence that with the jukebox that he has in the film, and that gets a lot of comments as well. Like, how fun is it working with Ari? Because he's not like, for those people out there who have never met Ari, he's not like that in real life. He's very like calm and you know, laid back, but he just goes to another level when he gets into these roles. Like, what can you talk to that for a second as well? Because I think people might be interested in that.
Yeah, well, we'd been talking about this project for a while, because I grew up with Ari, so I've known him sort of my whole life, and we were always sort of looking at doing something together where he could just sort of go off the rails, and so this project was was perfect for that. But I mean, besides him just killing that role, yes, I think there would be a lot of dance routines in a movie that involved Bob, which is funny because I think I mean, they probably won't want me to say this, but the writers fought me pretty hard on that dance scene, and they wouldn't write it in, and that's why in the script it's just like, and Bob dances over to the group, but they would not give me this scene, and I was like, I'm going to do it anyway, and they're like, it's not going to work, it's too weird. So it's good that it's like it's getting the feedback we wanted, because that was something that and I have no idea why I wanted to do it, but it was stuck in my head from the get-go, from treatment stage, that was something that we were going to do. And
it's the shoulder thing, right? It's the shoulder thing that he does.
It's like 3 minutes long, which maybe that's a Blu-ray or a DVD.
Is that, yeah, I was going to say, is that a special feature that we might end up seeing on a Blu-ray release sometime down the road?
I hope so, unless more people fight me on it.
Now that I know that it exists, I'm gonna be fighting for that too, for sure.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's a sequel there. Maybe that's like a prequel. It's like the climax of the prequel is Bob's high school dance or something. Let's see what happens. A little Carrie moment.
Smack in the face. I'm like a coiled snake.
Gentlemen, we are about to have a lot of fun tonight. Hey.
So speaking of high school dances, and obviously the film is clearly set in the 1980s, right off the hop. We understand that's what's happening even from the trailer and that sort of thing. But why set it in that time period? Like, was it just like your love of horror movies from that decade? Or perhaps like just the nostalgic feel that it gave you, or was it more just the aesthetic with kind of focusing on settings and the neon hues, the music, that sort of stuff, or was it a combination? Like, walk us through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I generally lean towards more that neon look. Like the film, or the film that I made before Oak Room and Vicious Fun was really neon filled, called Let Her Out. So that's just an aesthetic that I like. But it was actually, I think it was like we were into the first draft of the movie, but only like 15 pages deep. And it was started to be this, like, we knew we wanted this movie to be like a love letter and an homage to all of these classic movies, but we were having trouble with all of these cell phones and laptops, and the fact that everybody's always on them felt like it was fighting that homage. So it was actually the writer, James, who was like, well, what if we set it in a different time? And so it was discussed. We were going to do it in the 90s at one point. And then I think we kind of just settled on the 80s because that just made the most sense because of the films that we were referencing. But yeah, that was sort of, that was never in the treatment. It was supposed to be set in the present day, but it was sort of this super technology, and the way that the world is now with everybody glued to their phones was really sort of fighting what we wanted to do with the film. So reverting it to the 80s got rid of all that bullshit, which is nice to go back and be able to just concentrate on story and characters rather than being like, why don't they just call the cops and blah, 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 blah. So little logistic thing too.
And do you think, like, if there's ever a sequel to Vicious Fun, let's just hypothetically, just for jokes, would you set it still in the 80s, or like would it be in the late 80s, or do you think you would hop over into the 90s?
I think it'd be great to jump into the 90s just to get a completely different aesthetic and just seeing what that would do to a Joel, or especially with Carrie's style. I think that'd be pretty fun.
Hey, I didn't even gag.
Awesome. And we have one last question. So this is a question, you both can answer this, but I guess they asked this, Biff asks this of every filmmaker that does a Q&A, which is that if you had an unlimited budget, what film would you make? So like, you got full creative control, you've got unlimited cash flow from whichever studio decides to be crazy enough to back you guys. Here's $200 million, $300 million, $500 million. What movie are you making and why?
Fuck. Such a big question.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was
I'd love to do like a Beetlejuice-esque movie. It's just one of those movies that's so awesome, but like, nobody touches it because it's just like, what are you gonna do that's better than that? Yeah, I don't know. Starship Troopers, man. There's so many shitty sequels. Maybe do a good one.
It's funny. I was sort of asked not this same question, but asked sort of is there a movie that you would want to remake? And I don't know if I'd want to touch that double-edged sword, but I would love to do a sequel to The Burbs. I would love to direct the sequel to The Burbs. I think that would be awesome, and I've got an idea for it, which I wrote way too long ago and is terrible. But yes, that's what I would do. I would do a sequel to The Burbs, and I wouldn't need all that money. Well, maybe most of it for Tom Hanks, but yeah.
How much money would you have to pay Tom Hanks for him to do a Burbs sequel?
Exactly. So we might need that money.
I'm guessing 100 million. I'm sure he'd do 100 million, right?
Yeah. So give me 101 million and we'll go.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think we'll leave it there. We don't want to keep everyone at home waiting too long to get to their next movie. But we also did want to say thanks so much from our whole Black Fawn team, from myself, Benner, from Cody, and from Chad. Down below. Thanks again for watching Vicious Fun and for inviting us to this year's BIFF. We're so happy to be part of the festival, and we're sorry we can't be there in person. Trust us, we want to be there so bad. But hopefully there'll be another time that we can pop over and see everyone and meet everyone face to face, and hopefully we'll have another film for you. But enjoy the rest of the festival. Anything else you guys would like to add before we go?
Keep supporting independent film.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Super happy to come play at BIFF again. We've had a couple films there over the years, and always loved it. So we'll hopefully see you next year too.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and again, thanks again for watching Vicious Fun. Hope you enjoy the rest of BIFF, and we will see you soon. Take care.